Good morning. I am Pete, also known as Risk for Rewards, or over on Twitter known as at Risk for Rewards. Currently got around 20,000, well, 20, yeah, a bit more than 20,000 followers over on Twitter, and over here on YouTube we've got about 1,700 subscribers. If you haven't currently subscribed, if you click the link to subscribe, it just means you get a notification when any of these videos go live. And also it means that if you've logged onto YouTube, it'll just come up on your homepage rather than going searching if you're looking for any racing selections. I do content all through the year, particularly for Cheltenham. But this is obviously the last few months I've only been doing it mainly on doing YouTube as well. This week's being predominantly YouTube just because it moves so fast with Royal Ascot. Hence why I'm doing a video tomorrow, which is actually for Thursday. But the reason I'm doing it is one, because it's not a busy day for me on Thursday in regard to selections. Despite there being 7 races, there's 4 fairly big handicaps, of which I may pick maybe 1 selection or 2 selections out of those, or I may just skip most of the day. But there is 3 that I'm pretty keen on. The Discord prices have already been taken, so I'm happy to put them up already because it's not unfair on the group because they've already got all of those prices. So I'm going to go straight into, so this is Thursday. Obviously currently so far the only day we've had of racing is Tuesday. I'm recording this on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. 9:30, sorry. Tuesday was an okay day. It was quite unfortunate just because I had a couple of near misses, like the likes of Innsbruck coming second, Highfield Princess coming second. Bring on the Night just got absolutely no run, which is why I think Ryan went out and made all on Vauban. Something that was very notable, which if you're watching this morning, which is Wednesday morning, you might want to consider with your Wednesday bets, is you need to be prominent and on the pace. The ground is, we're not sure yet, they haven't given the going description, but it rode, it said that it was good to soft in places, but it rode pretty quick. People were struggling to make ground from the front. You saw the likes of the winner on the first race, Triple Time. You saw with Vauban. Who else did you have? Paddington. All of these runners, River Tiber, all of these were prominent. And so I think that may play out unless they overwater the ground. So I'd be sticking to that. And another reason to why I haven't dived into too many selections on Thursday is one, because obviously we're going to get a lot of extra form today to go with. We're going to see the way if there's any biases with regards to handicaps, especially with the Royal Hunt Cup. And also I've got plenty of selections on Friday, short ones and big ones. I may well have a selection in every race on Friday. So right, anyway, on to Thursday, Royal Ascot. So Thursday, Royal Ascot, and it's the Norfolk Stakes. The reason I'm happy to put this up is because there's quite a few people in the group that are already on elite status. I did put it up at 33 to 1. I didn't put it up as a selection, as in put your points on it. I just said you may want it. I actually put it up on Twitter as well. I put it on the evening of Twitter. I put my comments actually were it may be worth having a bet on elite status 33 to 1 to win tonight and to win the Norfolk, and also on I think it was Blue Storm, who was the favourite and had the best form going into the race. Blue Storm obviously didn't win, but elite status was another level. So obviously if you're on the 33 to 1s, whether it's through Twitter or Discord, you're laughing because you're coming in with a 7 to 4 shot. You can lay it off if you like. If not, then obviously here we go. Right, so elite status, straight up, I'm not going to go away from that selection. Even at 7 to 4, I think that price is more than fair. The reason I'm putting this video out now is because I think the price on this horse and the horse I'll mention in the next may well shorten. So 2 horses for me in this race. Elite status. So elite status came out on debut, won readily enough, just like many of these 2-year-olds do. Nothing like pulling up trees. Set at 90 RPR, impressive enough. But the race at Sandown was red hot on paper. It was a listed race. It was a race which favours the low draws. So something like, off the top of my head, something like 7 or 8 out of the last 10 had all won from low draws. He was drawn 6 of 9, so he wasn't in a low draw. But it just did not matter at all. Like, if you haven't watched his run, most people will already be looking saying, I'm already on elite status, I already know this, so apologies if you do already know this. But it was one of those mind-blowing, eye-popping runs. They went into this race, and of the British, this looked the best of the British by quite a far. They're pretty much the whole field were entire winners. Whether they've had 1 start, 2 starts, 3 starts. And Carbuck ended up with a 1-2 in the race. But it was just the manner in that he did it. It's backed up on the clocks. Like, there was a big discussion on day 1 between River Tiber and Asadna. River Tiber doing it visually. Obviously, O'Brien was proven in the race, had the form. But Asadna had it on the clock and was visual and all of that sort of thing. Whereas Elite Status has got both. Elite Status has done it on the clock, has looked visually impressive, but also has good form to back it up. Most of the runners in behind, the likes of World of Darcy, Hackman, etc., all of those were had wins going into it. Blue Storm had the best form, probably the best form of all the 2-year-olds in England going into this race, was Womp 10 lengths. So it was the way Elite Status quickened, but then went into as further into the race, quickened again. And Sandown is a horrible track because of the way that they all get pegged in, stuck and stuff. And he just did it so easily. Won by 5 lengths from World of Darcy. Another reason why I want to get this out today is because World of Darcy runs in the last today in the Windsor Castle. I've backed that and put that up at 20-1. In fact, no, I think it ended up about 16-1. And if that runs well, then obviously that's going to boost Elite Status's chance as well. I mean, as I said yesterday with River Tiber, brilliant to get the win, but it's very like you've got to be careful with these 2-year-old races because they blow your eyes out, but at the same time it doesn't take a lot for another one to improve £10 and go straight past it. And when you're playing at 7-4, it's not a lot of play. But as I said, if World of Darcy goes well tonight or the money just comes tomorrow, then you could easily see this horse going off even shorter, which is why I want to get it out now. Carl Burke seems very, very confident in this horse. It was similar sort of mannerisms to the way he was with Dramatised last year, and we saw how that went. Drawn low, which is going to be good with regards to his market rival, because his market rival's in 1, so he's 4, and his market rival American Rascal's in 1. So for me, there's very little to knock. Carl Burke was joking around saying hopefully the American horse will give us a toe to the furlong pole. Well, he's going to get that, and if he's good enough, he's going to get the perfect toe into the race, and he'll have little excuses providing he doesn't get pocketed in. Obviously, you do need luck in running, but at the end of the day, it's a straight track race, so there should be very little excuses out there. American Rascal has been knocked, smacked around, and all the works of just American horse and stuff. But I generally, to be honest, it is one that I fear in the race because I know obviously we give a lot of abuse to not abuse, but a lot of disregard to the American horses after he's come over and said, but he has been quieter this year. They were no good yesterday, but I didn't expect them to be. It's where they feature as their 2-year-olds. And this obviously is heavily related to the Lady Aurelia, but priced up accordingly. Let 3-1, that's not giving very much away. If you were looking at 6-1, 8-1, I would maybe be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'll go for that. And as I said yesterday, I like a horse that's had 2 runs going into these races. They've got the experience, like with River Tiber yesterday. American Rascal is impossible to assess. 10 length winner on debut, but how many of Wesley Ward's win 10 lengths on debut? Plenty of them. Some are superstars, some aren't. They come here. I think the difference is between Ward and O'Brien. O'Brien's adapted his movements going forward. He's began to get more runs into them, 2-3 runs before he go here. Ward still isn't doing that. They win like a superstar, and if they go out next time, they have to be a superstar. I think you have to be a superstar to win on your second start, regardless. But I do fear American Rascal. Impossible to assess, but the clock sounds good. The section will sound good. Obviously, very well related with the whole Lady Aurelia thing. But for me, has to go up a level, obviously, to conquer Elite Status, who looks a world beater. At the same time, if American Rascal had gone to another race, like that could have been a consideration for a bet. But for me, Elite Status is another level above. Until you know it, you won't know. An American Rascal. The other thing with Elite Status is American Rascal is very predictable. It's going to blast off and make all. Elite Status, there's no reason why Clifford Lee doesn't just hang on the coattails of that. And if American Rascal is good enough, like Lady Aurelia style, just keep going, and you just have to take the defeat on the chin. But if the horse isn't, which is what I'm hoping, and which is what Carl Bark was joking about, then Elite Status should have no reason not to get the perfect toe into the race. And when it goes for that double quicken, like, should be gone and away. And this could be one of the best 2-year-olds that Carl Burke's trained in theory. Obviously, that's just theory. You can't base things on 2 starts. And as I said, this is why you don't go mental on your bets with the 2-year-olds. The other horse that I do like in the race was Noche Magica. Currently still available at 9-1. Let me just check that. 8-1 you can get now. 8-1, and I wouldn't put anyone off. Obviously, when you're backing a 7-4 shot, it's hard to back 2 horses, but you could obviously back it in the without market. But in reality, for me, it's just going to be a cover bet. So if you're having, say, 2 points on Elite Status, it would just be, well, to 8-1, it'd be 0.25 would just cover my stake. I'm not looking to win a lot of money. The reason is for Noche Magica, is I backed that horse last time out, and I thought it's looked very, very good horse all round on the soft and heavy ground. I really respect Paddy Toomey as a trainer. But the other thing that was enhanced yesterday, which has gone a little bit under the radar and will probably be picked up by the form analysts as they're picking it up today, studying for tomorrow, is how at the time he was beat by Give Me the Beat Boys, who was 11-1 on the day. Travelled all over Give Me the Beat Boys and just got beaten over it was 6 furlongs. Whereas obviously the step back here to 5 furlongs, this horse is going to travel. So like this horse would love to be sat in behind American Rascal and will be one of the last off the bridle. How much it finds, no idea. But that form with Gimme the Beat Boys, Gimme the Beat Boys ran a much better race than I thought it would. And at one stage, I thought if that was over 5 furlongs, he would have beaten River Tiber because he's travelling so well. So Noche Magica, I think, dropped back down to 5 furlongs, got the fast ground, drawn in 11. So nowhere, obviously, you could probably going to go up the middle. But I just think it's a no-brainer to have a cover because it looks for me like the likes of His Majesty, stuff like that. For Ryan Moore was finished behind Gimme the Beat Boys and Noche Magica, but I think that had little excuse compared to the other. As I said, anything can obviously improve past. No Name Mets is interesting, coming for some money, and obviously Frankie's booked. And you'd think that Frankie, well, I don't know, but I would have thought Frankie would have had offered the job on American Rascal, but I don't know. Yeah, but obviously to be respected. But for me, yes, between the two, and it's quite a standout. And I'm looking Elite Status as my win bet, and Noche Magic will be there to cover my stake. I think that's the best of the English and the best of the Irish. If you get beat by American Rascal, it's just one of those things. You just have to accept it, which is why you don't go absolutely nuts. But people will be going nuts, I think, for that. I think it's quite a few people's nap of the week. Next on to the Ribblesdale Stakes. So it doesn't get any more exciting in the fact that I'm standing here tipping a favourite again. The reason I'm coming on here now is because it's 10 to 11 currently with quite a few places. And I think come tomorrow you could be looking at, obviously I could be wrong, but it could be anything. 4 to 6, 4 to 7, anything. I just think the reason why it could be those sort of prices is because I think we've got a modest bunch of the 3-year-olds in the fillies and mares. Well, mares. Or is it fillies? I think it's fillies actually if they're below the age of 4. Either way, the female horses, we've got a modest bunch. Infinite Cosmos, I was all over going into the Musadora. Ran very well, finished behind Soul Sister 4 lengths. That form's probably not too bad, obviously having won the Oaks, so it has to be respected. But she has to come up another level. And Blue Stocking is the one that I would fear more in the race, in the fact that I thought she did plenty wrong when finishing behind Warm Heart, and she looked very novice-y. And you could argue, is she even going to be ready for this sort of a race yet? But the biggest thing for Blue Stocking is the ground. If they don't water and the ground continues to quicken, then I'm not sure she'll even be in the race, because they was originally they'd said that if it's faster ground, she won't be in the race. So it depends how much and if they're putting any water down to whether she'll run. I thought Warm Heart would be more of a danger because that horse looks streetwise. Aidan O'Brien, and as I always say, Aidan O'Brien, John Gosden, fillies and mares races. So maybe Warm Heart might be the thing. But as you can see, as I go through these, all of these are horses with huge potential. Blue Stocking in particular has got masses of potential. And you can't write Infinite Cosmos off just from one run finishing third. Again, this is why the flat's very difficult this time of year, because they've only had 2 or 3 runs. But I'm just going on what we saw. I mean, if you haven't seen the debut, well, not the debut, because the debut was impressive, but it was in a race where it went slightly under the radar. But if you watch Al Asifa's run at Goodwood, where, I mean, that was literally like blow your eyes out. I don't want to go and obviously be the sort of person to compare it to the likes of a Baid, but there's plenty in there that had run before, like the likes of Sumo Sam, Empress Wu. Like they weren't like fair, they were fair yardsticks, put it that way. They were achieving, like Empress Wu was achieving 96 and 97 RPRs, so you're not beating absolute yaks. And the same with Sumo Sam had achieved 98s and 92s, and this horse literally dropped in and it just blew everyone's eyes out. It was one of those, if you took evens on that day, you were absolutely laughing. Like it, and people that I've seen a few people try and knock it for different things, and that's fair enough. But I mean, some people said, "Oh yeah, this is the third run in quick succession." But if you go and watch that race, you're like, "Was that even a run?" Like, as in, you just don't see it, and it's not visually like as in you see a horse like the Wesley Ward horses where they're really hard on the bridle when they go past or whatever. Like this horse that. It just looked, everything looked so easy, so uncomplicated, and just went through, well, it didn't even go through the gears. It was just not even asked, it wasn't nudged, it was just so smooth. And it's one of those, like, yeah, okay, you're back in a 10 to 11 shot in a race with a lot of horses that are a lot more proven. They've got 20 runners, and the horse is inexperienced. But it's inexperienced in the fact that she's now had 2 runs. She's had 2 runs this year, whereas the likes of Blue Stockings only had 2 runs. Infinite Cosmos has only had 3. Warm Hearts had 4. So you're not coming in against massive inexperience. The inexperienced side for me is the inexperience of the day, it being Royal Ascot. It's hustly bustly. But as I've said many times before, John Gosden is the absolute master. And the fact that they were talking about straight after this supplementing her for the Irish Oaks, and they may still do that. Like this horse has got to be recognised as a massive player here. The other angle as well, obviously at 10 to 11, people are going to start saying come tomorrow, yeah, but that's not a bet. If she does get backed overnight and she's in at 4 to 6, 4 to 7, she's not a bet. And she might not be a bet because she's the shorter price. But I think at 10 to 11, like she was evens, but it was gone like that. So, and I think 10 to 11, it's worth the risk. Yeah, okay, you could be wrong, but what do I want to go through and back? Okay, maybe I back Blue Stock in, and then they come out and they say after the race, oh, she didn't handle the ground. Like I find it very hard to pin my colours down on one horse if you were away from that, or even two horses. So for the sake of, okay, you could be wrong, but I'd rather be wrong in taking a chance around the even money mark. I think that's more than fair. I would not have been surprised if after Dex had priced her up at 4 to 7. I think she's more of a 4 to 7 shot. And you know what? At 10 to 11, I'm willing to take the risk. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's one of those things. There's very little to go on. It's just what you've seen. But if you're right, I can tell you now, you're not going to get the likes of 10 to 11 in these sort of fields. The next field she'll be racing in is something like the Oaks against the likes of like horses like Soul Sister, Save the Last Dance. Or you'll be looking at things like the Arc. So if you want to back her for the Arc, that's another suggestion. I may have backed her for the Arc around 12 to 1, and that's not something I would put you off. But at the same time, obviously you lose twice because obviously if she's really poor here or doesn't do the job here, she's probably not going to win an Arc. Does she handle the ground, etc., etc. But at the moment she's running over 1 mile 4 furlongs, same trip as the Arc. She'll get the 3-year-old allowance, the fillies allowance, and all the works. And when she first won, I was very lukewarm on saying, oh yeah, I want to back her for the Arc. Until I saw connections of where they were going to send the horse. I wanted to see what their intentions were, and the fact that they're happy to pitch her in at this level, John Gosling isn't one that tilts at windmills. The only negative potentially is the fact that she's drawn wide when 9 out of the last 10 have been drawn low, but so's Infinite Cosmos and Warm Heart. She's 13, Infinite Cosmos is 12, Warm Heart's 16. The only one who's drawn well is 7, which is Blue Stocking in effect, and she's not going to go forward. So, I mean, this horse just looks uncomplicated. And it's one of those, could get beat for many reasons, but I just think the price is fair. And like, she could win here, and then people would be like, do I want to take 4 to 1 for the Arc? That's a ridiculous price. But she gets all the allowances, the 3-year-old, the fillies allowance. And we've seen it with the likes of the Enables and stuff in the past. So it's more, the reason I've done this is more just to, if you want to take it, you're better taking the price. If you want to leave it and just watch it, then perfect. That's whatever suits you. And then finally onto the Gold Cup, Ascot Gold Cup. This has been a race that's one of my favourite. I know loads of people knock it and moan about it, but maybe it's because I like the jump so much. I like seeing them over the longer trip. Like I loved Vauban yesterday. And this for me has been a 2-horse race for a long time. I put up Elderov for the Discord group at 8 to 1 at the start of the season, and Coltrane at 6 to 1. I'm not going to stand here and go against any of the other going against them, but I am going to run through quite a few just because obviously it's never just a 2-horse race on paper. Truishan, I don't get it. Like Truishan was very much honeysuckle-esque in the fact, well, I say that honeysuckle obviously bounced back at Cheltenham, albeit at a lower level. Alan King was so quick to say, right, we're going to look at Hurdle's campaign, we're going to look at this, which insinuated to me that perhaps they thought deep down that maybe it was the end of the road for this as a stayer. I don't think, as a stare on the flat, that is. I don't think this horse is at the same level that it was before. I think it pretty much fell in on Champions Day because under optimum conditions. Did beat Coltrane, who's obviously currently the favourite here. Would it be any surprise to see it bounce back at 20 to 1? No. But at the same time, they've been talking about the Ascot Gold Cup for years, and even when Truishan's been in his prime, and he's missed it every year due to the ground. So unless they overwater, like there's no deluges at inbound, so the ground should literally quicken up through the week. They shouldn't be watering because it had soft in it yesterday, so it should just quicken up. And by the time it gets to Thursday, you should be looking at good to firm or something like that. So Truishan, his participation would be unlikely, and if he does run, then he's got to run on for the fastest ground. Echoes and Rain, I can't have staying the trip over the 2 miles 4 furlongs. I know stayed it over the jumps recently, and obviously went incredibly well when what was the race that she won? Oh, she was a second in was that the Irish Cesarewitch? Yeah, Irish Cesarewitch. She was second in that over 2 miles. I just think it's a long way for a horse that doesn't settle. Same time, we've seen what Willie Mullins did, but I think even for him, this would be a very big training effort. Not saying she can't win, but she's not for me. Yabir, again, he's never one that I've looked at and just thought, oh, he's the next stayer. So he's only raced at 12 furlongs. I think it's a massive ask to win a race like this. The Gold Cup is not a race that you just win stepping up from like the Derby trip up, well, 12 furlongs. That means he's going up 8, 16, 20 furlong. So you're looking at going up 8 furlongs, so another mile on your first try at it. So for me, I'd understand that they're doing it for experience, but and obviously he's an outsider's price, but I get it. Broome, I do get the angle. I get the angle of Broome. Obviously, 1/2 miles over in Maidan. Finished 1.5 lengths behind Giavoletto. Does have to reverse form of Eldorado though, because Eldorado was carrying a penalty that day, and and Broome obviously had come in there having ran in March. Eldorado came in fresh and was giving him £2. This time Broome gives Eldorado £1, and obviously and so that's a £3 reversal, and obviously Eldorado finished in front of him that day. Thing is, Aidan O'Brien is the absolute master. So Broome is one of those where he's either all in or all out. Like last year, he was electric in the Hardwick here. He was under a phenomenal ride and he won, and he was very, very good. So he is one of the outsiders that I could see featuring here. It would not be surprised. And that York race, I mean, it was over 6 furlongs shorter than this. But it's one of those that with O'Brien, you know that he's just always got another plan in mind, and this would have been the plan. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him go well. However, there's a reason why Ryan Moore hasn't chosen Broome. If he thought that this was the main stable hope, then he would have been on this. So Broome could go well at a big price. I get it. Subjectivist is another one, hard to write off. Obviously proven at this sort of level. I say at this sort of level was phenomenal in the Gold Cup when beating a decent field. So not just like an anything gold field. You look back, I think it had Princess Zoe in it, Stradivarius, Spanish Mission, Santiago. Like it was a decent field at the time, and he was brilliant in it. A 122 RPR as well, which is next level. I don't think anything in this field's achieved that. No, they haven't. So like he was phenomenal. The issue is obviously in the last 2 years he's been very injury prone. He was well beaten in the Jebel Ali, and then obviously went to Maidan. He finished a better 5 lengths, third in the Gold Cup, which showed in Maidan, which showed he had some of his spark. But you look at that Maidan form now with Broome, and I know Siskany won over in America, but I mean that's not fantastic form. Could bounce back, but I struggle to find that they come back to this level over this sort of trip, especially for a runner as aggressive as Subjectivist. Charlie Johnston and Mark Johnston train their horses hard. This horse will be one of those from the front, hard to pass. He's going to get everything in his favour. He's going to get fast ground, probably get an easy lead. So he's not to be. You don't want to be giving him an easy lead. And like if he was a bigger price, like if he went out 16s or 20s, then yeah, I could see the case of having a small cover bet on him. Currently 10-1, I think, with his injury issues. Because as much as you say, obviously that was working back to this. You don't send a horse out to the Middle East for to Riyadh. Obviously you're getting the cash for it, but then also to Maidan, unless you think you're going to go at least reasonably well. Because as much as you're trying to cash collect. They're not preps for an Ascot Gold Cup. Courage Mon Ami, if it wins, it wins. I just cannot have this. I mean, coming here on your fourth run, having just beaten a Jaggio in a handicap, like that's ridiculous. And okay, so that's not ridiculous. Ridiculous is the price of it. Me personally, if it was to win, it should be a 20-1, 33-1 shot. But because Frankie Dettori's on it, it's trained by John Gosden. I mean, you look at Stradivarius in the past, he got beaten in like October Gold, the Champions Day and stuff like that before he turned into the stayer that he was. So maybe they're dipping him in these waters to get some experience before going forward. But I mean, like you're running off level weights with the likes of Eldorado and Coltrane, who are proven at these sort of staying trips. This horse has got 6 furlongs further to go, and whilst he was impressive last time out, it was in a handicap. No for me. Emily Dickinson. I can totally see the case. £3 allowance to get from most of the field, £4 from Coltrane. Was favourite for this race at 3-1 before bombing out last time. I'd imagine we'll see a much better Emily Dickinson, and she is one of the main dangers. The only thing is, I think a lot of people do forget is that it was easily forgotten that she did finish 6th. Is it 6th? No, give me 2 seconds. Where is it? No, 5th, apologies. She finished 5th, a well-beaten 5th, behind Eldorado off 3 lengths in the St. Ledger last year. So she has got to spin that around, and she was getting the 3 lengths weight allowance last year. So obviously my argument at the time was she was 3-1. That's why I started putting up the likes of Eldorado and Coltrane's, because she was 3-1. So whilst you respect her, and obviously Aidan O'Brien can improve, and as I said, Aidan O'Brien again with his mares, he improves them. And if you're one of those coming to this race and you just want an each way play, you haven't got anything with Ryan Moore in the saddle, I could totally see it. But I do think two things for me. One is obviously she's got to reverse that form. And two, also a lot of her form, like I can flick through here and you look at her numbers, like her big numbers are all coming in soft and heavy ground. Like she completely bombed on good ground last time out. She hit her career best was 118 in heavy ground over 14 furlongs, so 6 furlongs short of what we're looking at. She raced on good to soft behind Eldoradov, achieving a 110, which was her second best joint RPR. Um, but that was on good to soft, and the same when she finished 5 lengths behind Emily Upjohn over 12 furlongs. So she's got to prove that she stays this trip. I think everyone just got bought straight into the fact as soon as she stepped up to 2 miles last year in softer heavy ground, like she looked brilliant. But at the same time, that's one of her lowest RPRs, hitting a 104. So she's got if she ran to the 14, if she ran to her return, which was over 14 furlongs on heavy ground, beating French Claim, then yeah, okay, she's a feature here. But for me, the negatives are the ground and the price. She's like 6 to 1. She's got to make up work with Eldorado. I'm not saying she can't, because Aidan O'Brien's a master. But she had that allowance last year and she finished behind him in the St. Ledger. She was also ridden by, I think, Sean Levy in the Ledger, which said to me that obviously they didn't expect that much from her. Anyway, so the long way, as always, I am content first rather than just me giving you tips. So the two selections that I've made are Eldorado and Coltrane. Main reason for both of them is the fact both of them were Royal Ascot winners last year, albeit at a lower level, but both at staying competitions, and both of them won impressively. Eldorado, I'll go through first. He made complete heavy weather of it in the Queen's Vase, which is a Group 2, and he got up on the line to beat Zachariah by a nose. My only concern for him is that David Egan does not want to be doing similar to that. You do not want to be getting too far in this race. With the likes of a Subjectivist, probably a Ryan Moore and Emily Dickinson sat on his tail, you do not want to be giving the field too much rope, because as much as you'll have plenty of time, that's a long 3 furlongs straight. As I've mentioned first thing today, is when the ground's faster, it's harder to make up the ground. And if you give too much away, okay, it was good to Firm last year when he did it, and obviously he's got 6 more furlongs to deal with. You just don't want to give too much ground away. And he's a horse that can often get not so much outpaced, but in the middle to rear pack. And he's drawn in 10, so he's going to come across and slot in, and he's going to be ridden for a bit of luck to begin with. But 3 furlongs is a long way for him to come down. But you look through his form, and obviously last year, the St. Ledger, he beat Haskoy, who Haskoy's come back, I know obviously injured now, but came back and bolted up. He beat, in fourth was Giavoletto, who obviously won the York trial, which beat Broome and Eldorado off. In fifth was Emily Dickinson, who we've just been talking about. In sixth was El Habib, who placed out in the Maiden Gold Cup. In seventh, so beaten 5 lengths, was French Claim, which is obviously the horse that Emily Dickinson beat on return. But French Claim has got good form himself, so the form stacks up everywhere. New London we haven't seen, who was very promising and the favourite on the day, but we haven't seen since. Eldorado did bomb out at Ascot in the Stayers event on Champions Day. That was no real surprise, because it was his first time in with the big boys, soft ground and all the works, but it was a different horse, I thought, on return. Apparently was quoted as quite fat in the paddock on his York Stakes return. He had a group penalty, so he had to give £2 to Broome, he had to give £5 to Giavoletto, he had to give £5 to Quickthorn, £5 to Siskany, but he still beat the lot staying on, bar Giavoletto, who just got a good run. And you would argue, obviously that was over 1 mile 6, this is over 2 mile 4. It's very hard to argue that even at 1 mile 6.5 furlongs, Eldorado wouldn't have got up. I'm just hoping that David Egan took from that he's got his clock in his brain of how early he needs to get him going in order to get up on the line rather than be finishing fast. So Eldorado remains a strong selection for me. And then the other one is Coltrane. So Coltrane, go back to last year. So I need to go through a few of his runs because he's got so many runs. He's such a consistent horse. Last year he beat none other than Bring on the Night. Bring on the Night, you can't knock the form yesterday because he got no run, which is why I think Ryan Moore went out in front with Vauban. I think he wished he'd done that on Bring on the Night. He then went on, he beat Rodrigo Diaz, which gave him his career best last season until Champions Day. So, but all the way through, bar one absolute crazy race where with Quickthorn, where he just got a 14-length lead and never came back to them. He literally just had ding-dongs with Truashan all season. So he beat Truashan, and then he finished second behind Truashan on Champions Day. But the big thing with him was it just kept going and going and going. And the big thing for me is he's got his Ascot form, his Royal Ascot form. So obviously he's a Royal Ascot winner, but his form at Ascot is 1, to 1. So it's hard to knock. His form over further than 2 miles, which obviously most of these haven't, is one race. He's 2 mile 2 furlongs. Oh, two races. 2 mile 4 furlongs. So he won at this trip, beating Bring on the Night last year. And 2 mile 2 furlongs, he beat Trueshan, who obviously Trueshan, we know how good Trueshan is. And that was on good to soft. So there was soft in the title for Trueshan. He is the one to beat. There's zero doubt about it. And he looked better than ever when he returned in May. And the horse that he had in behind was El Habib, who had finished, was it second or third? Had finished fifth, behind Broome in the Maidan Gold Cup. And in fourth was Trueshan, who was absolutely thumped 7 lengths, and which is why they mentioned retiring him to the jumps. And they also beat Wise Eagle, who'd just won a big handicap at Musselburgh, and is the up and coming. He's a very interesting horse, and I think, if I remember rightly, he's like the hero story for this race. So Coltrane comes in here in red hot form. That was a career best 119. So they're the two to beat for me. I mean, okay, yeah, how are you going to play them? Well, they're currently looking at the market. They're around the 7-2, 4-1 mark. So you can back both of them with the exact same stake, and if either win, you're looking at like a 5-4 payout. And obviously, I've backed them at 8-1 and 6-1, similar stakes, to win the same amount of money. But at the same time, I wouldn't put anyone off having them on side at evens. But it's going to be a chalk and cheese, because there's going to be plenty of people who'd say the opposite, and they'll say I'd lay them both at evens, and that's their call. But for me, I think those two are the Gold Cup horses to beat. A quick flick through the RPRs, and you look from the last few years. 120, 122, 125, 121, 120. So in reality, you're going to need to run 119 there. So in the last 6 years, you're going to need to run to a 119 or 120 minimum. So a little quick flick through this. Broome ran to 120 in Maidan. We know Subjectivist got it, but that was a few years ago. Emily Dickinson hasn't run to that level, but she gets the allowance, so she'd be there or thereabouts. Eldorado ran to a 119 last time out, as did Coltrane. So both of those two are bang on the cusp. And this sort of race, that says to me that if they ran to that level or £1 more of improvement in this field, that they're there or thereabouts. And I think it at 5-4, 6-4, whatever, them two coupled, I'm more than happy with that. Obviously, I have got them at the bigger prices, so it's slightly different talking. But obviously, people watching this now, they want to know what they could back now. But if you wanted one at the bigger prices. I mean, obviously Emily Dickens is obviously, but I don't want you'd want Faster Ground. I mean, if you were going at the bigger prices, I'd be looking at Broome or Subjectivist. But Subjectivist, I'd be worried about the fact that it's a very strange campaign, and it would be a career best, a trainer best for Charlie Johnson to get that horse back to this level and win a Gold Cup. My only fear would be he could do it is if they give him an easy lead on the front. And obviously Broome. I think Broome's underrated, and Broome could go very well, but it does put me off with the jockey bookings that Ryan Moore's chosen away. So, right, that's it. I'm just going to cover the 3 races. I may have a selection or 2 in the other 4 races tomorrow, but Friday I've got a lot of selections, so I don't want to dive down on too many. I don't want to give too much away, as in too much. I don't want to be betting in every single race if I don't need to. So in summary, the reason obviously as well is that I've done multiples on these for me. I know a lot of people, I don't ever put multiples, but I wouldn't put anyone off a few small multiples because they are short price at the end of the day. So the first race of the day, I'll go through the selections first. So the 230 is Elite Status 7-4 and a cover bet on Noctua Magica 8-4 to win my stake back. And then the 340 Ala Sifa 10-11, that'd be a single. And then Dutch the 2, so split stakes on Coltrane and Eldorado. Looking at this, it looks like they're 7-2 and 4-1 currently. And then the Trixie, so a Trixie is 3 doubles and a treble, would be Elite Status, El Asifa, and then I do 2 Trixies. Well, I've done 2 Trixies and split the stakes, so if that makes sense. So I've done one with Elite Status, Ala Sifa, and then Coltrane, then the other with Ala Sifa, Elite Status, and then Eldorado off. So if you haven't done a Trixie before, it means if 2 of the 3 win, then you're getting paid out. And what I've already worked out that as long as 2 of the 3 of those, you'll get at least your money back. So even if the first 2 won, then obviously that'd be your money back would be minimum for both of those. And then, it would be profit actually, not just money back. And then obviously as long as one of the other 2 win. But obviously it's everyone's up to their own. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I have done multiples for those. And I don't normally do multiples, but at the end of the day, there's loads of free bets banging around. So to have a double or a treble. But just remember that obviously it's your singles that pay the bills, not that should be paying any bills. But if they buy the beers or whatever when you're at the racetrack. but it's your singles that count. So if you're someone who's having a £10 on a single, then your multiple should be like £1 or whatever. Obviously, again, as always, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I just don't like to see people lose money. So that's it for Thursday, Royal Ascot. Hope you've gone well. Hope you've had a few winners. Friday, I've got a lot of selections throughout the day. Some anti-post, some non-anti-post, some big prices. In fact, some very big prices actually, providing they hold, because with declarations are right now at 10 o'clock and that they're declared, and then some shorter favourites. So hope you have a good week. Speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.